Hi, everyone. It's Ryan from Wonderment Apps. I'm excited here today to present our first QA roundtable, quality assurance roundtable. Today, we're going to talk about a variety of subjects, specifically around QA test cases and test case preparation. Hopefully we provide some great insight for you on the QA process and how quality assurance works at Wonderment Apps and some best practices in general for going through that process for technology development. We're excited to have our QA team here, our QA team leads here to share with us today. I've worked with them for quite a while, and they do an incredible job of really figuring out some of the spots that cause trouble before a project goes into production and causes trouble for its users. They're really good at understanding what kind of user paths are challenging, how to actually test for them to make sure they're working effectively, and really cleanly report them back to the development team, and in some cases the product team if they have to. So I'm excited to talk more about this subject, but first I want to introduce all of the team to you. So let's start with Sergey. Sergey is our director of QA. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi everyone, greetings from Belarus. It's great to start our first QA round here. So my name is Sergey, as Ryan has mentioned, Schwab, and I have experience for 8+ years of working in quality assurance. Around 8 years ago, I started as a QA junior and was growing during these years. Here in Wonderment, I am head of QA department and mostly working on establishing management processes, QA processes, and I'm growing with this, and I'm glad to grow with the team here in Wonderment.
Great, thank you, Sergey.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, thank you. Next up is Elena. Elena, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, guys. My name is Елена Шпаковская. I'm a quality assurance engineer. I've enjoyed testing over 10 years. Tested manually web and mobile applications. And last years, I actively participate in establishing new and enhancement of existing test processes on the projects, different projects.
Great, thank you. Wonderful. And Anna, introduce yourself.
Yes, sure. Hi, my name is Anna Melnik. I'm a quality assurance engineer for more than 8 years. Before I came to Wonderment, I have been working in a globally recognized software engineering company. I have experience in testing of desktop and web applications on a variety of client projects, such as educational software, applications for aircraft design, advertising tool. I came here to Wonderment more than 1 year ago and have there a great working experience in testing audition and casting management software, advertising product. I met there great people, excellent professionals, and I'm really excited to work there.
Great.
Great, thanks.
Wonderful, thank you. So when we think about quality assurance, we're looking to try and find the best possible, most stable release that we can when we put something into production. That requires it not only to be able to have good testing patterns to make sure that things work out effectively, but also to understand what the usage and the business goals are of the product before they get into production, so that we can try and foresee any problems that'll happen. During that process, we really are up against quite a number of challenges a lot of times as we're trying to understand how the product works and functions, especially before it's launched. And that requires a lot of planning. So I was wondering, I thought we'd start by talking a little bit about what our planning process is like. And maybe each of you can tell me, how do you do test case planning as you're getting ready to QA a product? So Sergey, maybe you can talk a little bit about what test case planning for you is like.
Yes, sure, Ryan. So when project starts, it's always very important to have really good and detailed product requirements in order to start test cases creation. And test cases have a lot of benefits, and especially for such cases like pretty big projects with a bunch of different user flows, and there is always chance for human mistakes. And test cases help us and QA testers to catch them and to get rid of a majority of defects. And the key purpose of test cases is to ensure if different features of application or website are working as expected. And it also helps to ensure and validate if the software is free of bug and defects. And when we are starting preparing test cases, it's always great to have some kind of common understanding of whole project needs. For this, we are trying to create initially some kind of checklist, just high-level checklist, which shows all perspectives. For example, just main user flows, main test data that will be used for test cases. And when this checklist is prepared, we can discuss this with dev team, with product team, identify any gaps, for example, in our understanding of this application, and then we can start creating detailed test cases. And this is another process, of course, and when we have this checklist, it's really great to start with product requirements, with preparing, structurizing these test cases and requirements, and prepare some kind of sorry.
No, well, I think we're going to get to the requirements. I do have more questions on product requirements in just a minute. But I want to ask Elena really fast. What is
sure.
How do you prepare? Are there any special? I know we have to look at the product requirements, but are there any special preparation steps that you take?
Yeah. You mean before watching into requirements? Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Before this, we have like a planning phase. Yeah, when we start thinking, but it's not before. It's like at the same time. But planning is in parallel. But it's very important phase, I mean test case development, because any work should be planned first, and after that it should be executed. So the more time we spend on planning, the better result we will get at the end. And test case development is like a map for our future testing. When we have test cases, we have a logic and structure in our work, in our testing. And structured approach will give us a possibility to control process better, to find more bugs, and to have, again, a better quality product at the end. And also during test case development phase, we have a time to prepare strong, meaningful tests, which allow us to find bugs with high probability. So planning, planning. It's very important.
Right. So using that structure that you designed during that process, it gives you the best ability to prepare for all of the possible kind of main situations that might have to be tested against. So you have that. Thank you, Anna. How about you? How do you prepare?
Ryan, could you please repeat the question?
Do you have any? How do you prepare for QA? What kind of steps?
Oh, yes. I agree with my colleagues that planning is the most important phase of development, and usually I am starting from requirements analysis and understanding main business needs. After that, I'm starting creating checklist. It is like a high-level test plan, which will include the main functional models, and having these functional models helping us in future have a structure and like a logical map of our application. And having this structure, we can easily, I can easily, and my colleagues easily can understand the full picture of application, easily find required area. So having this structure, I'm starting to define the priorities of these functional models. When I define priorities, I usually use requirements by understanding main flows, which flows are the most important for user. Having these priorities will also help me in future to support this test cases structure. So after that, I sent my checklist to all team review, to my manager, quality assurance manager, to dev team, to business team, and after review, I'm starting test cases creation process. So yes, I agree with my colleagues. I think that test planning is very important, and it should be performed before test cases creation and before we start testing.
Great, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I agree. I think one thing I heard that came up a lot was using the requirements or the product specifications and the requirements of the user to be able to generate effective paths for testing to figure out the best way to actually tell whether the product's working or not. So it really comes out of those requirements. Sergey, can you tell us a little bit about, for you, when you're doing like thinking about requirements testing, what is that process like for you? So like actually breaking apart the requirements and thinking about how to look at them and move them into the right kind of test cases.
Yeah, Ryan. So it's definitely very important to analyze provided requirements and to identify gaps. it's very important to think from user perspective what flows will be used in this application, which of them are covered in these requirements, and some people even say that when you are writing test cases or analyzing requirements, you should put yourself in user shoes. So you should understand what end users will be doing at this website or application.
That's very important, actually, right? Because you're actually not just reading on the paper, but you're thinking about how they functionally would use it, and can you look at the potential variation in actions or problems they'll come up against?
Yes, definitely. And also, when we are starting, for example, any project, it's very important to identify exact maybe audience of this website or application, because you know there are a lot of differences between different regions. For example, what will be very famous, for example, in US, that cannot be, for example, such famous and important in Europe, for example, or in Asia. And that is why it's really important to identify this, to identify, for example, a variety of devices that will be mostly used in target audience for our application. Of course, really detailed review and analysis of requirements and test cases creation will allow to reduce costs of each bug that will be found in this application or website.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I have a question, Anna. I want to ask you this question. Thank you, Sergey. That was great. Anna, are there cases where the requirements are not written very well, and you must figure out more variation in the requirements? What I want to ask is, what happens when the requirements are not written very effectively?
I think that requirements are very important for all team. And when we start this cases creation, we are usually quality assurance engineer usually don't have application for testing at this development stage. So in other words, you will start requirements testing before application is ready for testing. And on this stage, quality assurance engineer starts to analyze all user flows for test cases creation, and he will find these gaps. If we don't have effectively written requirements, we find these gaps, and on this early stage, notify all team and business analysts, business users about these missing flows, and this will make the requirements better on this early stage. And as Sergey mentioned, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and
No, that's great.
Can I jump in for some words here? And of course, on bunch of projects that we've worked earlier and working now, we are receiving such situations when there are a lot of gaps in provided requirements.
Yeah.
In such cases, very effective is our understanding of best practices for similar, for example, applications or websites, for example, and we can provide some kind of suggestions for product team, for business team, that, for example, in such case, we can implement a flow in such a way and provide best practices in this area, for example.
Yeah.
And it's always great to have some kind of round tables between dev team, QA team, product team when we are reviewing these requirements. It will help to identify all, maybe not all 100%, but majority of gaps, and it will definitely save future costs of development and quality assurance. And this phase is really important because if we are receiving and starting test case creation with not really great requirements, it will cause a lot of issues in future.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Elena, I have a question. When you think about when you think about the requirements testing and you're collecting requirements and you're building towards regression testing, so how do you track all of the requirements that come in and kind of accelerate the regressions testing process? So as you get them, you always know to go back. What process do you use for that?
For regression testing, right? Yeah. For regression testing, to create a regression run, yeah, we need test cases created based on requirements.
So you collect the different requirements over the time and then build the regression, correct?
We collect requirements, right? Then we create test cases. And when we have test cases, we can easily and faster run our regression testing. And that's the goal, I would say, of test case development, accelerate regression testing, yeah? Because when we have to run this type of testing, it's much easier to pick up tests from already existing scope of test cases, right? And I, as a test run creator, can easily to assign correct number of tests, not too much, not too less, just correct number for regression run. And everyone from management, from team can look into this run and understand what is the scope of our regression testing. Because in this case, in steps in title, we always try to describe very short and clear steps or description of the test, and you can easily understand what is the test about and what is the scope of checks this regression run verifies.
Yeah, and sorry, Ryan, I just remembered or recall one gold rule here. You know, a regression should contain only the most important flows, which can really block, for example, whole application or website, and it's really important to prioritize test cases. When we are creating test cases, we are putting exact priority for each step, not step for case. For example, P1, P2, P3, and we can use any management tool. For example, it's pretty easy to pick up, for example, P1 test cases and put them into regression test run. And there is a gold rule that good written test cases, we can treat them good when 20% of the most important test cases can cover around 80% of all flows. If I correctly remember, people call it rule of 20 to 80, something like that.
It's
and
the 80-20 rule, I think, yeah.
Yeah. And it's really difficult. It's really important because, you know, QA tester can create, for example, 1,000 test cases, but they will be checking just some UI checks, some typos in text or something like that. But they can create maybe 20 test cases which will cover login, registration, sign up, forgot password, for example, checkout flow. And these 20 will be much more important than those 1,000. And that is the main rule of creation and prioritization here.
Yeah, that's great. So just to be clear for people who may not know exactly how the process works, so the QA team gathers the requirements from the product team and sometimes engineering, and they understand how these requirements they have to work within the product to make sure that it's technically functioning correctly. And they take and assess those products and create pathing and flow through the system to basically mimic what that user experience is actually going to be like. And those are called test cases. So they're actually creating test cases that run throughout the flow. And then the regression testing. The regression testing comes when you pick the kind of the most important of those test cases that always need to be checked as you're doing releases on the product going forward. So so in all of these cases, like understanding the product, how the product specifications are supposed to work at the foundation of the product, but also as it changes in each release is really important because it can affect how you test it going forward. Not just in individual test cases for that release, but thinking about whether the product is stable through regression testing, correct?
Yes, correct, exactly. And you know, this is called maintenance of test cases. Yeah. And it's very, very important to maintain them in actual state. Because with each release, we are getting some new features, some UI changes. And if, for example, test cases are not updated, and really important changes are not included in regression, they could be easily missed. And goal of regression test run is to reduce possibility of missing such cases. Because, for example, of course, if I, for example, QA person who works on one project, for example, 2-3 years, I'm pretty familiar with this project. But anyway, there is always a chance for mistake or just for miss. And if you have detailed test cases, you can just, you shouldn't rely on your brain. You just open test case, for example, watching steps, if it pass or fail. And in such case, if you thoroughly go through all steps in this regression test run, you will definitely will not miss blocker or critical issues. And that is one of the greatest benefits of regression test cases.
That's great. Yeah, thank you. That brings up my next question, actually. Elena, maybe you can answer this one. How do you prefer to store these test cases for future testers? So once you've created the regression testing, or as you're creating new test cases, what's the best place or the most effective way to store the information and share it?
Okay, you know, in my experience, I used several tools starting from Excel. Yeah, but it's not convenient, of course.
Good
yeah,
spreadsheets. Yeah, right.
Yeah, Google Sheets, and also I worked with TestRail and with X-Rays. It's a Jira tool, but my favorite one is TestRail.
What do
And
you like about TestRail? Like what about it?
It's convenient to use. It's logically clear. It provides a lot of features such as reporting. Also, it's easily to create different runs with different configurations. So for managers, for leads who creates test plans, it's very useful and very helpful features. So
and integration.
Yes, integration with Jira, yeah, it's
other
very
tools.
cool when you execute some test case. You can leave test result, yeah, and if it's failed, you can create corresponding bug in Jira and link it with corresponding test case.
Yeah.
And on test case, you will see this link and will be able to jump into corresponding bug by clicking on this link. That's very
That's great. Yeah.
fast and useful. Yeah. So
does X-ray do something similar?
No.
No.
I would say no, not so useful.
Not so simple.
Not so simple, yeah. And I would say less possibilities. So I would suggest TestRail, of course, from my experience.
That's great. And Anna, how about you? Which tools do you prefer for kind of saving the test cases and regression testing?
Yeah, in my practice, I also started from Excel, and some test cases were written in Word documents, and I also prefer TestRail. I think it is, from my opinion, it is the best tool for test cases creation and management. It is really convenient and useful, contains all required fields. Also, it's really useful to organize test runs and monitor the status of testing. And as Elena said, it is really a great feature that we have integration with Jira, and you can easily organize the traceability between user stories and between test cases.
Yeah, and maybe from a management perspective, this tool provides really great possibilities for reporting needs. Also, for example, we have situations.
That's important.
Yeah, and on some projects we had situations when our client doesn't have access, for example, to TestRail, and we need to show him some results of testing or something like that. And it provides a lot of possibilities, for example, to create export of test results in different formats. For example, in PDF, it provides, for example, ability to export testing report for test run, for regression test run, for test plan for different features. And they look really great. They are really clear. You can customize them for business needs. For example, because, for example, if you are providing a report for business people, it should be completely different in comparison with report which you providing to tech people. And this tool provides all these possibilities. And also, as Anna and Elena has mentioned, it has a lot of integration possibilities. And it's really convenient. For example, when you go through test run, you can see, for example, and identify a bug. You can start creation of bug right out of TestRail. So you click button and you go to create issue page in Jira. And the same situation, for example, you can put different references in TestRail to requirements, to different issues or tickets in Jira, and it really helps in our daily work.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Yeah, that efficiency between between being able to track the data and input it, and then and report on it, but then also having it turn into an actionable item in the project management software is really, really helpful and effective. Yeah, I love hearing about that. Well, listen, we're actually out of time. I don't know if you can believe it, but it's been almost 40 minutes. I know we have a lot more to talk about. We were going to talk a little bit about automation as well, but we're gonna wrap up right now. And I want to thank all of you for sharing your thoughts and feedback on kind of like the foundations of QA and the basics of it. In future QA roundtables, we'll go into more detail around some of these subjects and give kind of deeper, more intricate insights. But it was really great having you all here today. And maybe if you want to say something to say goodbye, Elena, let's start with you. Would you like to say something as we head out?
Yes, guys, I was very exciting to be participate in this meeting. Thank you, and see you soon.
Great.
Bye.
Thank you for your insights. We appreciate it. And Anna, how about you?
Thank you, guys, that you have me the chance to participate with all of you and share my knowledge. And I'm really excited to be there. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much. And Sergey, great. Thanks for bringing the team. And we really appreciate your insight. Do you want to say something as we're leaving?
Yeah, Ryan. It's really great to start this series of QA podcasts, and I hope visitors of our social networks will not judge us too strict, because it was the first attempt. We are not public people, and it's really great that we have such opportunity to connect with our followers to discuss anything, and we will be learning, and just comment everything in our social networks and follow us, and thanks everyone.
All right, thank you guys. It was amazing. I appreciate it, and I'm excited to talk to you more in coming episodes about some of the other aspects of quality assurance and the QA test case process. I really appreciate it. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. It's Friday today, so have a wonderful weekend. And for all of you out there who are watching, we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you very much for having us. We are Wonderment Apps. We're located at www.wondermentapps.com. We offer two great lines of service. The first is managed projects, where we can bring you a team of people that can construct really great software and technology. And we also offer a staff augmentation service line as well, where we allow you to work with our developers, and they're just an amazing group, well curated, and so we hope we have a chance to work with you in the future. Thanks.